Hey church, thank you for joining us on Daily Devo. Today we're in Daniel chapter 6. Probably one of the stories that most people know. There's certain stories like Noah and the Ark, David and Goliath, and this one, Daniel and the Lion's Den, is also one of the stories that many are familiar with. And if you aren't, if you read the chapter, you know what has happened. The king is dividing up the kingdom among different leaders, and there's a jealousy because God is blessing Daniel and he's being very successful. And so these other leaders come and try to get a way to trap David. They kind of look thinking, hey, you know, he's a political official, so he's got to have graft somewhere. And they research it and they show that Daniel was a man of character. And if there's anything, his only negative to them was his devotion to God. So they hatch a plan to go to the king, to go to his ego and basically say, King, let's honor you. No one can pray to anyone but you for 30 days. And if they do, they have to be thrown into the lion's den. And we're going to make a law that can't be vetoed. It can't be changed. And the king, just not thinking about it, says, okay. Now, I find it interesting because when that law is presented to Daniel, he doesn't just say, you know what, I'm just going to stay silent for 30 days. I'm going to pray, but I'm going to pray in the back of my house where no one knows. It's kind of interesting because remember in chapter 1 when Daniel was commanded to eat the king's food and it violated the Jewish laws, he didn't just say, I won't do that. Instead, he appeals because the reason for that was not to cause Daniel to sin or his companions, but they wanted them to have the best food. So when David threw a test and said, I tell you what, for 7 days, let us have water and vegetable and see if we aren't as bright or brighter than anyone else. And if not, guess what? We'll eat the king's food. And after 7 days, they're tested and they're the best of the best. This is a case where they were out to get Daniel. So because of that, he does the opposite. Not only does he continue to pray, but he actually opens his drapes so he can clearly be seen. He prays out and he's seen and he's arrested. The king is heartbroken when he realizes he's been set up, but he can't change the rules. Daniel is thrown into the lion's den, and in a supernatural act, God closes the mouth of the lions overnight. The king comes back the next morning expecting to find Daniel dead, but instead, he's alive. The king is so happy to see Daniel, but also very angry at those who set him up. So these other advisors are thrown into the lion's den where they are devoured quickly. And it was God coming to Daniel's defense because he stood for what is right. See, that's why I think we need to be careful at times. Sometimes we think someone's attacking our faith, or we think someone, maybe a boss says we can't have a Bible study at a certain time. Our appeal, or at lunchtime, our appeal may be, hey, would it be okay if everybody came a half an hour early and we had it in the break room before anybody showed up? And the boss may say, well, sure, you can do that. And just the appeal keeps us from becoming adversarial. If someone's offended by something, we want them to be offended by the fact they're a sinner, that Christ said he's the only way, he's the only truth, he's the only life, he's the only way to God, not by our actions. Paul said, as much as possible, live at peace with all men. But when we have to stand for what is right, and we're sure it's what God's called us to do, then no matter the outcome, we can have confidence that God is there, God cares. He can either take us through the situation, or He can give us peace as we go through the situation. Well, guys, again, thank you for joining us on the Daily Devo. I hope you continue to make this a habit, and I hope you have a blessed day.